Welcome to Beyond the Matrix with Rod Bryant and Jerry Gordon here on Israel News Talk Radio. Unplug, strap yourself in because you are about to move beyond the Matrix.
You asked me what happened last night, Viennese time, here in Vienna. To set the scene, to set the stage, my daughter, who is a junior in high school and very much into opera and theater and stage productions, decided to take the last night in freedom, to take advantage of that night, because we're in lockdown right now as we speak. So we have a curfew that starts in about 3 hours, and all the theaters are already closed. And like thousands of other Viennese people, she took the opportunity to enjoy one last performance at a theater in downtown Vienna. So it was up to my husband and me to be at home, to sit at home. We were actually getting ready. It was about 8:15. We were getting ready to watch a movie, which was aptly named Vienna Blood. An English movie, dubbed in German, and we were watching that, and all of a sudden my husband's cell phone right next to me started going crazy, and apparently I was not really watching him closely, but apparently he received a short video clip, and he played it, and I heard shots in the background. And my husband said, uh-oh, that doesn't sound good if it's legit. And he kept replaying it, looking at the video very closely, because my husband's in the army, so he knows a bit about about shotguns and weapons and ammo and what have you. And I wasn't paying attention yet, but I did switch channels and went to the Austrian 24-hour news channel.
Sorry about that, guys. I was using the wrong template, so let me switch this audio over to the one that I need to use, and
Okay.
we'll continue on. Stand by 1 second. It's the first time for everything, isn't there?
Of course.
Okay.
We're cool.
Okay, we're about 3 minutes and 35 seconds in,
Thank you.
and I'll play you where
I know where I stopped.
Okay, in 3, 2. Well, hold on, let me get my voice out of there.
Channels and went to the Austrian 24-hour news channel.
Okay, and 3, 2, and 1.
To check up on the latest, assuming that there would be something on this news channel. And lo and behold, there was. And this news channel was replaying all the videos that had come into my husband's cell phone. I immediately sent a text message to my daughter, and was lucky because there was an intermission at around that time. Informed her about the situation, told her just to remain calm and not leave the building. We would get in touch after the end of the performance. In the meantime, more and more text messages and video messages were coming in. We were starting to get a bit concerned. We knew right away, well, I knew right away when I watched these video clips, one of the perps, and of course we still don't know, was it just one or more, and we can also get into that later. The perp caught on camera was wearing white clothes. And someone like me who knows a bit about Islamic law and the quote-unquote ideology knows that white, it has a significance in Islam. And I knew right away that this of course was not an attack by the peaceful Muslim Buddhist minority here in Vienna, that it was probably something very different. And then of course everything, the situation became very serious very quickly. My husband packed himself together, put on his combat boots, and drove the car to the city center, which is about 20 minutes from our place, and basically stood guard outside the theater to be ready to, welcome our daughter into his arms. He was actually prepared for a pretty long night. In the meantime, multiple messages reached me from the United States, from very close friends here over in the United States, from England, from other places, from my family. Is she okay? Have you had contact with her? Do we have to worry? So I was basically juggling, watching the news, and keeping everybody informed about the whereabouts of my daughter. What was kind of interesting, the first thought I had was, why is our daughter, actually following in her parents' Forrest Gumpian, forays, what have you? Why does she have to be like her dad and like her mom in places where she probably shouldn't be? But thank God everything turned out okay. She was locked down in the building. The building was locked down with about 600 people inside, and the audience was provided with water. They were even permitted to smoke. Not that my daughter smokes, but people were getting kind of nervous, so they needed a cigarette. And then until the SWAT team came in and permitted the audience to leave in a very concerted manner. It was a concerted effort to lead those 600 people outside the building and into the underground. And there were 2 special underground trains waiting for these people to take them outside the city where they could be picked up. My husband was able to secure my daughter and her friend, drive her friend home, and by about 3 a.m. my daughter was home. She was okay, although I do have to tell you that today is a little different. She does seem to be a little confused, and which is normal. So that's the situation from my part of the family. The situation in Vienna itself is a mixture. I would say it's a mixture of utter shock, even in the government, steadfastness, yes, in the government, but also extreme and utter, I would almost say almost PTSD among the population, because you have to imagine it was a very warm night for a November 2nd here in Vienna. We had about, I would say, 63, 64 degrees at that time, which is very, very warm. It was a balmy night. So people were outside. It was right smack in the center of Vienna, which is why there was talk about an attack against the synagogue, because this is the area. I'm not sure it was an attack against the synagogue itself. It was just very convenient that, the Jewish quarter was around that area. It's just a party area where young people congregate and have a drink or two before the lockdown. You have lots of theaters located in that area. So the big Vienna State Opera was sold out, like many others. That's also smack in the center of Vienna. So police were pretty busy securing the area, but from what I could see on television, they did a fantastic job. we heard that the first call for help was sent out at 8 p.m. and apparently the perp was neutralized at 8:09. So the police were at hand immediately. The SWAT teams were at hand immediately. The special forces from the military special forces were on guard, put on alert. The military also helped secure the embassy buildings in Vienna, so the police officers could help out with securing the perimeters in the city and guiding the people back home and what have you. Definitely, you could say it was not as chaotic as one would imagine. Big kudos to Austrian police force, and they did a marvelous job. One police officer was shot and wounded. He was in surgery. He's apparently now doing well. He's still in critical condition, but he's doing well. We have about, I think, 22 injured, and that's in addition to 4 people who died of gunshot wounds until this morning. So I have not heard of any additional gunshot wounds or additional dead. So we have 22 injured and 4 dead, excluding the perp.
We're going to have to go to a break. Really, our hearts go out to the citizenry and also to the people that are going to suffer the most, and that's going to be the family members of the dead and the injured. Our prayers obviously go out to them. We're going to go to a break. When we come back from the break, we'll pick this back up and continue where we are. You're listening to Beyond the Matrix here on Israel News Talk Radio. Beautiful.
Thank you.
During the break, I think what we'd like to do during this next segment is to deal with the reaction on the part of the Chancellor Kurz. And it's an opportunity for you to address the conversation, so to speak, he had from President Macron of France, and then briefly talk about some of the other problems that have arisen with people like Turkey's Erdogan and others, but also, frankly, get into some of your history related to the blasphemy problem that has existed seemingly for decades, essentially inside Europe, and was heightened by what occurred in France. And
remember also, before we go into Kurz and his reaction, there are still a few questions that remain. So let me talk about what I know about the perpetrator before we go into the political aspect.
I'm going to turn this over to Jerry, and we have a special announcement at the last segment. I'm limiting my conversation. Oh man, the audio is horrible. Hold on, guys. Let me test it through the. Y'all's is fine. Mine is disconcerting, to say the least. Hold on 1 second.
All right, Rod, just give us the sign on so we know we're going into the next segment.
Yeah. I'm just trying to fine tune a few things here. So.
Sure. Okay, we understand. By the way, Elisabeth, that was great reportage.
Yes.
Personalized. It's spot on and certainly articulate as ever.
So
and yes, we feel grateful for the fact that this is the last interview you could possibly give during lockdown.
When you say you're on lockdown, this is because of COVID, not the terrorist attack.
No.
Yes.
No.
This all occurred on the cusp of the lockdown.
Correct.
What are the rules for your lockdown? I mean, can you get out and get groceries?
Yes. Stores are open, but as of 8 p.m., we're on a curfew with only 4 reasons to leave our house. So the curfew is from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. and stores close at 7 p.m. So we're allowed, very reminiscent of what George Orwell said, well, we're allowed to shop and work and sleep, and that's all.
That's about the extent of it.
Yeah. And high school students are at home with doing distance learning, and they're keeping kindergartens, primary schools, and junior high schools open for now. But I think they're going to shut those down too. And my daughter, of course, is very unhappy about the distance learning because she's in a special school, for music education. That's part of her curriculum in high school. So right now she can't sing and she can't play the piano, which is part of her curriculum. So that's what upsets her most, because you can't sing and you can't play the piano on Zoom.
Okay, guys, we're queued up. Here we go. In 3, 2, and 1.
Welcome back to Beyond the Matrix, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back from the break. You are listening to Beyond the Matrix here on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm Rod Bryant, along with Jerry Gordon and Elisabeth Wolff. And we have great information about the attack that took place just yesterday in Vienna. Jerry, go ahead. It's yours.
Elisabeth, let's pick up where we ended during the first segment. And what is the characterization of the perpetrator that's interesting in this attack?
From what we know right now, and this is information I got a few minutes ago before we came on the show, it's the perpetrator was a 20-year-old Macedonian Austrian citizen with family roots in Albania. So of course he was Muslim, and he was in jail until quite recently. He was caught wanting to go to Syria to fight jihad, and was sent back, I think from Turkey, back to Austria. He stood trial here in Vienna for being a part of a terrorist group, terrorist activity. And he, again, like I said, he was found guilty, but was tried under juvenile law. So his sentence was quite light. So he was in jail, I think, for only a few months. And in jail, apparently, he was de-radicalized, whatever that means. We all know that it's a totally useless term. But his attorney said he was de-radicalized, and because he was such a good person, he was actually let go. He was freed from jail. He was put on a conditional discharge, whatever you call it. I'm not a lawyer, and his lawyer was and is extremely shocked. He never thought that this would ever happen. This was a young man, and his family is a very good family, and nobody understands why this man did what he did. I would say, if I can allow me to make a personal observation here, I don't think the de-radicalization worked all that well. Maybe we have to rethink the de-radicalization programs. Maybe they're not really up to what they're supposed to do, but that's just a side information from me. Another question that arises, in my point of view, is we are told that there are 6 places in Vienna that were attacked. 6. Now, in the last segment, I said the first emergency call came in, or the first 911 call came in at 8 p.m. and the perp was neutralized at 8:09. Now, if we have 6 different places where attacks took place, well, either he's Captain Kirk, or there are more perpetrators. The interesting point to note here is that the Minister of Interior is recently at a press conference only 2 hours ago said that as of right now, they're looking at only one perpetrator and the perpetrator is dead. So this is a major question that I have no answer to, and we'll have to see what the authorities and the police and the other teams come up with, but this doesn't make sense. So yeah, this is what we know. Of course, the perpetrator was a complete saint. Nobody understands why he did this, and it's a complete mystery. We don't know, and now I'm going to turn my sarcasm off.
Okay, what was the reaction of Chancellor Kurz and the very interesting telephone call he got from President Macron of France?
Chancellor Kurz, of course, he was on the record, or actually spoke to the nation immediately. I would say it must have been around 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. And he immediately said the usual words we all know. There must be a playbook somewhere in the different chancelleries or across Europe. It's always the same words. We are shocked. We can't understand. Hatred must never divide us. Love is stronger than hate. We're not going to have we will not permit our societies to be divided by the senseless act of terror, blah, 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 blah. It's always the same. I don't know if Chancellor Kurz spoke to Macron personally yet. I do know, and that's something I very much appreciate. Emmanuel Macron was the very first head of state to tweet his condolences to the Austrian people, and he did it in German, in perfect German. So that should be duly noted. It's very much appreciated. Of course, President Macron of France knows exactly what Austria is going through. We could actually say been there, done that. It's very reminiscent of the November 2015 attacks in right. Bataclan and the other places in and around Paris. So he knows what he's talking about. Also the recent attacks, including the beheading of the teacher, showing the cartoons, which are behind you, Jerry, and yep. In class, and for which this teacher had to pay with his life. Another interesting piece of information is immediately this morning, President Macron made paid a personal visit to the Austrian ambassador in Paris, France, and also, from my point of view, duly noted. That was a very, very important gesture. I don't know yet what was discussed. We have not heard back from the Austrian ambassador in Paris, but it was a very important gesture of solidarity between France and Austria. And other than that, the political, I don't want to call the political elite, but the most important personnel, or the most important people in the Republic laid wreaths at the site near the execution of this one. Yes, I also have to talk about the execution about the one innocent bystander. But official wreaths were laid. You had. We don't have bipartisan because we have more parties than in America, but we had all partisan, or basically, would you call it nonpartisan? We had all political parties represented at this wreath laying, and amid heavy security, of course. And this was very close to the main synagogue in Vienna. Although, again, I do not believe that this was an attack against the synagogue. This was an attack against our way of living, our life, and our freedoms.
Having said that, this attack looks like a sympathy in the cause of Islamic blasphemy against any criticism of Islam and its God, Allah. And you are someone knowledgeable about that by virtue of your experience in trials, both in Austria and at the EU Court of Human Rights. And I like to draw attention to the fact that you're also the author of a New English Review Press book, The Truth is No Defense. Why don't you tell our listeners essentially what the book's theme is all about? And she's showing you a copy of the cover page. Go ahead.
And the book is available on Amazon for purchase. Correct. There's an audiobook, there's a Kindle version, and a hard and soft cover version. Yes, Jerry. I mean, you and I go back more than 10 years. You interviewed me basically even before all of this happened with my trial at the European Court of Human Rights. So right. we've what I've been through, and I've always been very forthcoming because I believe it's an important story. First of all, we talked about this before, and we discussed this while off the air. People are probably wondering why an Austrian gal, or maybe an older lady that I already am, speaks English with an American accent when most Europeans speak English with a British accent. Well, that's easy to explain. Part of my childhood was spent in Chicago, and before that, even in New York, because my father is a diplomat. He's now retired, but during my formative years, part of my childhood were spent in New York and in Chicago, in addition to Iran during the revolution. And then after I was old enough, or after my graduation, my high school graduation, I myself entered the diplomatic service and went to Kuwait and had my little adventures in Kuwait too, which you should actually read about in my book. The crucial years of my having grown up in the States formed my belief that freedom of speech, or any kind of freedom, is granted by our Creator. And this is totally contrary to what European law says. And I was naive enough to think or to believe that I had a right to free speech here in Europe, which I don't. So perhaps I should explain in more detail this right of freedom of speech for Europe versus United States in the next segment.
Well, this is the final.
Jerry. We are out of time in that, so we're going to go right into the break. Okay.
Yep.
Do you want to hold Elisabeth over to wrap up, or what?
We could do that, but the question is, we also have to do a wrap ourselves.
We do.
And I think, Elisabeth, if you can, in just a few minutes, give us the principal facets of your position as a result of your trials, both in Austria and before the EU Court of Human Rights. I think that would wrap it up. And then Rod and I are going to have to deal with the question of our wrap at the present time.
So you'll explain this, but the idea that the truth is not a defense, tell me, what does that mean?
When I was taken to court for many things I said in a seminar educating Austrians about the danger of Islam and what it was all about. and I was reported to the authorities and then taken to court and had to and stood trial. And everything I said in those 12 hours of seminars that I gave was okay, except for one sentence or one rhetorical question that I asked, which was, what do we call Muhammad's behavior towards Aisha, his child bride, if not pedophilia?
Mm.
I was looking for another word.
Right.
What do we call it if not pedophilia? And in order to sort of circumscribe this situation, knowing that you can't say Muhammad is a pedophile, you can't say it in Austria, you can say it in the States, I said that Muhammad had a thing for little girls. And that is the sentence that got me in trouble. Ultimately, I was sentenced to 120-day fines and the charge was denigration of religious teachings of a legally recognized religion. So it was a blasphemy charge.
So freedom of speech is an anomaly that's unique to this country at this time.
Well, I mean, look, if you look at the books at the law in Austria and in Europe, you have a freedom of speech but situation.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, you don't. You have freedom of speech, except in the States, you only have you can't yell fire in the theater.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That's it.
Correct. That's it.
And the Supreme Court has always been very strict about that. You have that Skokie Supreme Court decision. You can even have Nazis running in the streets. That's freedom of speech. You may agree with it, you disagree with it, but you can do it. That's unthinkable in Austria. It's unthinkable in Europe because we have the strictest anti-Nazi laws. We're even stricter than in Germany. Our laws are so strict that we have, I would say, about at least 20 to 30 people actually going to jail every single year.
Wow. That's
okay. Going to jail, and I'm not talking about a fine or a suspended sentence. They're actually going to jail for something that they believe is true. Now, Jerry, you know where I stand on National Socialism. I've always been very clear about it, but I'm also a free speech activist. So I believe you have a right to be an idiot.
So literally, they have thought police there.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yep.
My colleagues and I don't even touch the word Holocaust, Jewish, synagogue, anything having to do with World War II. If you're a historian trying to look at this period of history, you better stay away from it because you're always in jail, basically in jail, because you cannot even touch it.
Oh,
again, there's the deniers, and those are idiots, but they don't need to be in jail because that's freedom of speech in the US. You have a right to be a complete moron, idiot.
Absolutely.
These people need to be ostracized from society, but they do not need to be in jail.
But you and I both know that if this country is run by the ultra left wing, we're going to be in the same situation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if this goes wrong tonight or tomorrow morning at my time, you guys are in serious trouble. I mean, serious trouble, because you're going to have 1618 back on the docks.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have all the Hillarys and all the Salam al-Marayatis back. You're going to have God help us if this goes wrong, because then my sanctuary of free speech is not going to be a sanctuary anymore.
Right. Very good. We're queued up. So Jerry, I'm going to throw it to you.
I think we need 2 more hours.
I would love to have 2 more hours. I really would. Jerry,
actually, subsequently, we could probably do that, but we're limited as to time. And this is the final program before we go into pause because
the nice thing is all of that was put on, all of that's on video, so it'll go to YouTube, what you just said. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So now, are you going to, Jerry, you're going to introduce what?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ask her essentially what was the key points of the book regarding the denial of free speech. And then she can encapsulate that. And then I'll say, and the name of the book is, and where can we find it?
Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, and 1.
Welcome back to Beyond the Matrix, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
We're back from the break. Thank you for sticking around. I'm Rod Bryant, and actually, we're going to ask Elisabeth one final question. I wish we had 2 hours to do the show with you. You're a delight to talk to, easy conversationalist, and one day, hopefully, Jerry will be able to do a couple of more interviews with you that we can put on video. Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, Elisabeth, why don't you give us in capsule form the key points in your book regarding the events that you went through, both in Austria and before the EU Court of Human Rights?
Like I said before, Rod and Jerry, we need about 2 or 3 hours to go through the fine points. But I would say the main point of my book is, like the title says, the truth is no defense. What I did is I spoke the truth about Islamic doctrine in a setting of seminars that I gave back in 2008 and 2009 here in Vienna. And I said a lot of things. I educated people about Islam in fully sourced presentations. And I was then reported to the authorities and taken to court for everything I said in these 12-hour seminars. What the judge did, she was very unhappy with me saying or asking a rhetorical question, which was, what do we call Muhammad's behavior, i.e. marrying a 6-year-old and consummating the marriage at the age of 9, and Muhammad was 56 at the time. What do we call this behavior if not pedophilia? I was actually looking for another word, because if you say, well, you can't say that, then I would need another word to describe it. We don't have to use pedophilia. Let's call it something else. But what do we use? Which word do we use? The judge did not like me saying that. I was found guilty for denigration of religious teachings of a legally recognized religion in Austria, i.e. blasphemy. The Austrian government or the Austrian prosecutors doing what Muslim authorities would usually, Islamic authorities would do, find me guilty of defaming the Prophet of Islam. And I fought this charge all the way up to the Austrian Supreme Court, lost all the way, and then took the case to the European Court of Human Rights. And the European Court of Human Rights 2 years ago ruled that my right to free speech weighs less than the Muslim's right not to be offended. If you want to know more details about how that came about, you need to read my book, honestly, because it details how I got into all of this. Why did an Austrian like me even, I could be reading Daniel Steele novels, and that's what I would like to be doing. But God had a different plan for me. So now here I am talking about the intricacies of freedom of speech. Please, if you want to know more about it, read my book, and Jerry will give you all the information about where to purchase it. But the truth is no defense. I spoke nothing but the truth in court. So help me God, I did that. And the truth is absolutely no defense, because we could have had Aisha and Muhammad as witnesses, and it would not have made any difference at all.
Elisabeth, thank you for this rather stunning interview. And again, folks, you can purchase the book, The Truth is No Defense, on Amazon, and it comes in soft pack, hardback, and also in an audio version on Kindle. So, Elisabeth, thank you. We hope you, your husband, and your daughter are safe under these circumstances, and we understand the strictures of the curfew you're about to enter. We will talk later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Okay, it's stopped now. The tape is stopped. And thank you so much, Elisabeth. We really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hearing more, and I'm getting ready to order the audio book. So I can't.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. The narrator actually speaks perfect German. You got to get in touch with Rebecca. She found him. I think he's based out of Arizona. And he was a delight to work with, and he did a very, very good job of reading the audio. So, let me know if you like the book.
I will.
I mean, there's not much to like about it, but it does explain who I am and why I got into this, why it's so important to me personally and to everybody else.
Let me tell you, it inspires me to know that there are freedom-loving people in Europe that can really realize that the United States is the last bastion of that kind of freedom, and that somehow we need to help your voice get out, so that Americans can realize if we don't hold on to this, we'll lose it. And once it's gone, it's gone. Yep. It's not going to come back.
Yep. Please also, when you read the book, it says very clearly what my position on Israel and its importance, and I was in Israel back in 2010. It's been 10 years. It's amazing. I really want to go back as soon as possible. And I also spoke twice. I think it was twice or maybe even 3 times at Rabbi Jay's synagogue, which was a delight for me and it was a privilege. So you will be reading excerpts of my speeches held at Rabbi Jay's. And I think that's also very important because, an Austrian always needs to defend herself. And people should know how I feel about Israel. And it's without America, without Israel, there's no place to go.
Thank you. And that Rabbi Jay is none other than Rabbi John Hausman, who we have had interviews with on INTR GTM.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, he's my absolute favorite rabbi, one of my closest friends, and he and I spoke today, and I do hope he's gonna watch it. At least, Jerry? Can you send the link to him, or does he watch anyway?
Yeah, well, no, he'll get the link straight off. Not to worry about that. But John is under some strictures as well.
I know. I know. He's suffering. I know. But he's just the best. He's really, a very, very special man.
He is a very special guy in more ways than one, and my wife considers him as her rabbi.
Yeah, like me. He's one of the heroes out there, and I'm very proud to be his friend. I'm proud to call him my friend. And by the way, just before I let you guys go, that I am on a sort of a no-go list here within the Jewish community here in Austria. They will not talk to me. There's apparently a list of people the Jewish faith community will not have any sort of contact with, any sort of connection with.
Is it because it's too hot to handle type deal? What's the deal?
They hate people like me.
I think it's probably a reaction to the cases, and also, frankly, about keeping one's head down from being a target of the very same event that occurred last night. And that's unfortunate, because it means that you cannot tell Emmett the truth about another doctrine. And that's the problem. There is not the equivalent of an American First Amendment. And this is something that Elisabeth and I had shared during my early interviews with her during the start of the last decade. But it's something that I can understand, but don't understand at the same time, particularly because of Elisabeth's strong and determined stand in support of Israel.
Which I've always had, which was never in doubt. And that's why I'm so explicit about, you need to read what I say about Israel, what I keep saying in speeches. It's in the book, and it's there's absolutely no doubt. I will not even consider defending myself. I'm on the record, and there's absolutely no doubt about where I stand and where Israel stands, and I will always defend Israel. But these people don't want to be. They don't want to have anything to do with me. I know one Jewish former city councilor from the Austrian Freedom Party, and that's it. I know no other Jews here in Vienna. I'm not in touch with anybody. Nobody wants to even touch me in the sense of relating or of nothing. I'm a pariah in the Jewish community here, and I think that's very unfortunate. But
Bad.
What they can't do is they can't call me an anti-Semite. They can't get away with that.
Right.
So they have not called me that. They can't. But they think I'm a right-wing extremist, and so they don't want to, they want nothing to do with me. I'm a right-wing extremist, guys.
That's amazing. Well,
you sound like frankly, you sound like an American centrist.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I know. But that makes you a right-wing extremist here in Austria. And I'm probably just as dangerous as the guy who killed at least 4 people last night. My phone my phone is definitely monitored. I can guarantee you that. I always assume that it's monitored. And it's just hard to understand because I'm just a regular mom, basically. And then, of course, you have the SPLC. They hate my guts, but then again, it's almost an honor to be on their list. So,
we've got to hear more. I can't wait to read the book or get the book.
Yes, please do tell me if you liked it. And Jerry, again, thank you to you and Rebecca for publishing the book. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think it turned out. I'm quite proud of the book.
You should be.
Yeah, I just think more people in the States need to read it because it is very much focused on the U.S. The U.S. is the target audience here.
Excellent. Okay, we'll see you later.
Guys.
Be well, and
Shalom
make sure
from Austria.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you, and my love to Jean, Jerry.
Okay, I will express that to her.
Thank you.
And I will also inform Rabbi Hausman that he's got an interesting gift coming his way.
Okay, I'm going to catch up with him and tell him, oh, my daughter is calling me. Guys, take care.
Ciao.
Okay, let's burn this fire.
All right, how much time do we have left?
We're at 4 minutes and 15 seconds.
Remaining.
So we've got enough time.
Okay, fine.
We just are not going to be able to do much on talking about a lot of past things, but we'll just move back and forth for a little bit.
Okay.
And okay, here we go. We really appreciate having Elisabeth on, and too bad, like we said, we didn't have the hours to spend talking with her. But today we have a very special announcement we have to make. And I had mentioned or alluded to it earlier that I've got some issues with my health, i.e. I've got a growth in my vocal cord, which is going to keep me from talking for a while, and talking obviously stresses it out. So this will be the last official Beyond the Matrix show for now until we figure out what's going on. And Jerry, I want to tell you what, you have made this experience a lot of fun. You've done so much work to bring some of the most amazing guests on. I mean, you could probably list the guests, but over the past almost 5 years, we've done this every week. And before you came along, I had Ira Michelson with me. I had Rabbi Michelson, and I had Rabbi Tobias Singer with me. And It's been an amazing time. I mean, I've had so much fun, and Israel News Talk Radio has been a great place to grow and to be a part of. Jerry?
Well, we've had amazing guests like Elisabeth Sabaditsch Wolff, who we just interviewed on the cusp of an Islamic attack in Vienna. We've had Kent Timmerman, who we've revealed stories that we basically scooped on. Our interviews with Nidra Poller, for example, in France and Paris during the eruption of the COVID pandemic there, and more recently, the beheading of the French school teacher were significant and stunning and picked up on. We've had Rabbi Hausman, who basically we just referred to in the conversation with Elisabeth.
We also had General Ardino talking about the Kurds and the time that he spent with the Kurds. The Kurdish people has been a big subject.
That was one of our first sally forths in that regard. And we've really put a focus on the question of America's allies in the Middle East, particularly the Kurds in question. But we've had others on as well in terms of the impact of technology on policy. We had Dr. Steve Bryan, who's been superb in a whole series of programs that we've done as well. So really, it's been a great ride over the course of well in excess of 180 programs in the can.
Right.
We're sorry that it has to pause at this point, but we wish you a refuah shlema in the context of recovery from this current situation.
I appreciate that. You know, I was thinking this morning, one of the things that I wanted to say is I consider myself a fairly, connected to my relationship to God and religion. And I told my wife the other day, there's nothing like hearing a loud voice from God going, shut up for a while, because it works. When the doctor tells you got to quit talking, and until we can figure out what's going on, you got to do it. But I am so pleased and so proud to have been able to do the work that has been doing here on Israel News Talk Radio, and to work with you, to get to know you. We've really become brothers from another mother. And it's
well, I think that's an apt description. I consider you as a bro, and I welcome the opportunity, if there's a conflict, to sit in the same foxhole with you, feeding you bullets.
Absolutely. There you go. Now we're talking, as a matter of fact, it's funny. I'm trying to think who introduced us. Was it Ira?
Ira introduced us because I had him on a former national security program with Lisa Benson.
Right. So Ira ended up, he's now a rabbi. He's got Shmita now. He's written a couple of books, which are Kabbalistic ideas about creation, which I hear is phenomenal. I'm going to actually order the books myself. But Ira has been just a great friend of mine over these years, and I really appreciate his support and encouragement during this time. And also, one of the things is the listeners here on Israel News Talk Radio. I've always been impressed by the the ethnic diversity. We have people from Africa, from the Spanish-speaking countries, Arab-speaking countries. We have listeners from all over the world. We've had a number of emails from someone having to do with Azerbaijan, and I'm just shocked to find out that we have these kind of listeners all over the world, and it's a pleasure to do the kind of work we get to do. We get to be a loudmouth and talk about all this stuff. And in reality, you've done the hard work in this. I just produced and work on the show itself and the audio, and not always doing the best job, but we're trying to do our best. But like I said, Jerry, what a mensch you are. And I am so excited. Of course, you and I will not lose contact. We'll continue to talk,
We will, and for our listeners and viewers, this collaboration will not end.
Right, there you go.
And we will continue essentially to break stuff that's on the leading edge, much like this final episode with Elisabeth Sabaditsch Wolff in Vienna.
Also, Jerry is going to continue doing the video portion interviews with guests over the weeks to come. So continue to look for it on on the NETIV online, one word, NETIV online. And you can actually watch these every week. I guarantee you do not want to miss some of these amazing interviews. Some of the news that we were able to break, we're talking about before it actually hit the newsstands, we were able to break some tidbits of information that was absolutely astounding. And I give it to you for that. Any last words that you would like to say?
Yes. The thing that was embedded in my head is the fact that we have been ahead of the news cycle so many times in the context of what we've talked about. It's really stunning. And that's important.
It is. And like I said, it takes having fantastic guests that we have on, people that are knowledgeable like Stephen Bryan. I mean, the guy is just a technical wizard when it comes to understanding the military and its capabilities. It's always been very exciting to do. Well, in the meantime, Jerry, you and I will stay connected and talking. And for you guys that have been such a wonderful audience, I want to say shalom and thank you for being patient with us as we have grown and learned how to do all of this. And I also want to thank Tamar Yona and Israel News Talk Radio for their love and respect. We really appreciate you, and we'll say shalom.
And a shout out on my part to their executive producer, Kalman.
There you go. Thank you. Shalom, shalom. Okay, awesome.
Hello.
It's done. Put it in.